Howdy, who all my stock market gamblers? Welcome today. I'm Tall Mike. So glad you're here. Well, what's going on in the stock market? Well, we're kind of going sideways, right? We're not going anywhere fast. We're not going up. We're not going down. Kind of sideways. Yes, we have a down day, then we have an up day, then we have a down up day. But this 5,300 number on the S&P, we've really been here for almost 3 weeks now. Which direction are we headed? Now, that's the question. Now, as long as we stay above the 20-day, I do think they'll push this market higher. Fall below that 20-day, the market will come in. That's just my take. But right now, we're going nowhere fast. We're going sideways. All right, so what I want to talk today a little bit about is how we got into this mess. How did houses become so unaffordable that nobody can afford to buy them? And people that live in the houses, they couldn't afford to buy the house they live in if they had to buy it now. How did this happen, right? Well, first, let's take a look at the banking system. Now, the FDIC, they came out with some interesting news, right? They said that the banks, well, the unrealized losses are $500 billion. $500 billion in unrealized losses. Now, that's what the FDIC is admitting to, but you can do the math. It's much closer, somewhere between $3 and $5 trillion in unrealized losses, meaning they've lost the money, but they don't have to say they lost the money because they still have the assets that have dropped by 30 or 40%. So they've lost $3 to $5 trillion, right? Okay, now the FDIC says, well, a lot of banks are in trouble. A lot of them are going to be insolvent, right? And if they have bank runs, they're going to go out of business. Now, the FDIC says that that is 63 banks. Now, yeah, I think you have to multiply that number by at least tenfold, right? 630, probably closer to 1,000 banks are going to go out of business, right? Because they don't have the money. They're insolvent. They've lost the money. Okay, well, that's interesting, right? That the FDIC is actually admitting that 63 are going to fail, and they're admitting that $500 billion have been lost. But those numbers are very conservative. All right, you see, the bank balance sheets are getting worse and worse and worse and worse. Why? Because nobody's paying back the debt. Nobody's paying back their loans. They're defaulting on their cars, defaulting on their credit cards, defaulting on their mortgages, defaulting on their student loans. Oh, I forgot. You don't have to pay the student loans. Okay, so how did we get this way? How did things get so bad? Well, I want to talk a little bit about the Federal Reserve if we're going to figure out how we got into this position to get out of this position. So the Federal Reserve, right, started in 1913. Now, contrary to popular belief, I was not around in 1913. But let's say my great-grandfather was, and let's say my great-grandfather in 1913, he wanted to set aside some money for his great-great-grandson, right? He wanted to set aside some money for me to open in the year 2024. So he took $1,000 and he put it in an envelope and he set it aside for me. Now, Grandpa, he wasn't, the genius. He was a farmer. He was, very smart as far as that goes. But he just put the cash in an envelope for me to open it in 2024. Now, my grandma, she was the smart one. Great-great-grandma was really smart because what she did is she said, yes, I'd like to give my great-grandson some money that he opens in 2024, but I'm going to put it in a little box for him. I'm going to take these gold coins that are $20 each, and I'm going to put it in this little box for him, right? So I'm going to give it to him in 2024 to be opened in 2024. So I got this letter, right? And I'm going to open that for my grandpa, and it's $1,000, right? $1,000, that's really cool. What's that worth today? Well, that's worth about $1,000. And that's great. My great-grandpa, he was thinking far in advance and he gave me the money. Okay, now my great-grandma, right, she put the coins in the box. Same $1,000, cost $1,000 to put the coins in the box, cost $1,000 for the currency. But I open up that box of coins, $20 gold pieces. Wow, this is really exciting, right? There's 50 of them, right? 50 of these. Well, what are they worth? They're worth $100,000, 100 times more money when my great-grandpa gave me, my great-grandma, right? 100 times more. It's worth $100,000. You see, that's just since the Fed started in 1913, they've wiped out 99% of the purchasing power of the dollar. The dollar's going away. It's going to go to zero. I believe it's already at zero. Once people lose confidence, see, the only thing keeping it alive is people still have confidence in it. People will accept the currency, but there's going to come a point where they're going to say, no, I don't want that currency. Give me the silver. Give me the gold. Now, give me real money. I don't want the currency. That's not worth anything. It's just worthless paper, and that's what it's going to become, right? But you see, this is what the Federal Reserve did to us. They've destroyed us. They're destroying our country from the inside, right? They're not part of the federal government. No, they're a separate corporation set up, and they're destroying our country, destroying our government. Yes, the Federal Reserve and the government are linked together, but they're separate, right? They'll even tell you they're independent from each other. But this is what happened. All right, so now there's a bill that comes out to end the Federal Reserve, right? Thomas Massey, he's a Kentucky representative, right? And he comes out, he introduces his bill. End the Fed. In 2024, a bill is out there to end the Federal Reserve. It's called the Federal Reserve Board Abolition Act. Okay, now do I think that's going to pass? No, I don't, because the Federal Reserve is too powerful. But you can go back to, back to Ron Paul now in 1999, he introduced an end the Fed bill also. Where did that go? It didn't go anywhere, right? If we had ended them in 1999, we would not be in the mess we're in. But now we're in this mess because the Federal Reserve still exists. Now, it's my opinion that we have to get rid of the Federal Reserve. It's just what we have to do. Look, the Federal Reserve has never been audited. Never been audited. They have free reign to print as much money as they want, to do whatever they want pretty much. They can buy bonds. They can buy stocks. They can buy mortgages. And now that's interesting. I'm getting to the housing part now. Okay, so the Federal Reserve, what they've done to destroy the housing market and make it unaffordable for everybody, even if you own your house, you couldn't buy it back. You couldn't buy it back right now because it's unaffordable, right? Okay, so the Federal Reserve has destroyed it for everybody. How did they do that? They lowered interest rates to 0%, and they kept them there for 14 years. 14 years at 0%, right? And that's where the corporations come in and start buying up the houses. They can borrow money for free, and then they can go buy these houses, and they can make 5-6% on their money. And this was great for the corporations because they're getting rich, and you still don't own a house, right? But it's worse than just keeping interest rates at 0% for 14 years. Much worse than that. That's just the tip of the iceberg. What else has the Federal Reserve done? Well, they bought $3 trillion with the T dollars worth of mortgages. Now, what would have happened if they'd never bought those mortgages? Let me think. Well, mortgage rates would have probably been higher. Probably would have not been down at 2.8%. Okay, so what would have happened to houses? Well, house prices would have probably just gone along at the 1 to 2% that they increase a year. House prices do not normally go up 30-40% over a 2-year time, but enter the Federal Reserve, they made house prices just skyrocket 30-40% straight up. Why? Because they printed all the money, right? They reduced rates to 0%. They bought all the mortgages. They destroyed the housing market. Now, how's it going to play out? Now, can we reset things? Yes, we can. Okay. Well, what does the Federal Reserve really do? Well, they set the price of money, right? Okay, let's say, for example, let's say smartphones, right? The ones that Apple makes, the iPhone, the Samsung phones. Let's say that there was a law that came out and said a phone can no longer sell for more than $200. They price fix all smartphones. You can no longer pay more than $200. That's the law, right? They can't go up anymore. Well, that would be stupid, Tall Mike. That would eliminate the free market system. And you would be correct. You would be correct. It would be stupid. It would take away the free market, right? But yet we do that with the price of money. We do not have a free market for the price of money. The price of money should fluctuate up and down. But they took that away, held the rates at 0%, and they still, everything depends on the price of money, and it distorts the price. Stock market is distorted by what the Federal Reserve does. It doesn't matter if they have good earnings. It doesn't matter if the stock makes money. It matters how much liquidity the Federal Reserve injects by adjusting rates up or down. You see, it's not a free market. It is ran by the Federal Reserve, and everybody waits for Chairman Powell to come out and tell us what he's doing so we can see if the assets are going to go up higher. Now, as soon as the assets start to go down, they got to print more money. There's not going to be deflation. A lot of people think we're going to get this deflation. I think we're going into hyperinflation. A lot of people don't agree with me. They say, but Mike, we have the reserve currency. It's not possible that we could hyperinflate. I'm saying it is possible. I'm saying we can get to 50% a year. Now, how do you get there? Well, you get there slowly, and then it's going to look like a hockey stick, right? And here's what's going to happen. Okay, so we're going to continue to print money. We're going to continue to go farther and farther into debt. 35 trillion now, 120 unfunded liabilities. We have to double that 35 trillion. We're going to double it to 70 trillion, no problem, right? Because we can afford the interest rate on 70 trillion. Let's just call it 5% interest on 70 trillion. That'd be 3.5 trillion, right? Okay, so that's all the money we're bringing in taxes, right? So we have to print everything now. We have to print every dollar the government spends now. What's that going to do to the hockey stick? It's going to go like this. Money's going to go to become, well, people are not going to borrow. They're not going to buy the bonds, right? The bond's going to crash. The rates are going to spike, and they're going to keep going up until we get some fiscal responsibility. So yes, we could have hyperinflation. I pray we do not. I don't want to see that. It's the ugliest thing that can ever happen to our country, but we have poor leadership. We have to get rid of the people. We have to get back to some responsibility. But my point is that the Fed, they're the ones that are adjusting the interest rates. They're the ones that are continuing to print the money. They're the ones that are distorting all the prices. They don't want to see a house selling below $1 million. We might as well just pass a law. Every house has to sell over $1 million. In my area, every house has to sell over $2 million, right? And we might as well just pass that law, but we don't need to pass the law. We have the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve will adjust rates to make that happen. Okay, so the corporations got involved in the business. Why? Because it's not a free market. People think that the corporations, the greedy people, they're destroying it. No, it's the Federal Reserve. You let us have free markets, those corporations are going to be running for cover. Why? Because houses are not worth $3 million for a 1,200 square foot tract home. That's the one I'm trying to sell this weekend. They're not worth that, but people will pay that because there's no houses, because there's no free market. There's only price distortions. The price distortions are caused by the Federal Reserve, and that's just what they're doing. They're going to continue to print the money. So how do you protect yourself? I keep saying, silver is a very cheap asset. Drop down under $30 or whatever. You can get an ounce of silver. Now, let's say, you see, I look at an investment this way. Okay, this is how I look at it. I say 500 ounces is going to buy you the average price home. Average price home is about $400,000 right now. And if you get 500 ounces of silver and put it away in a drawer, at some point you're going to be able to take that box out and trade it for the average price home. That's just my take. Now I look at it this way. What if I'm right? What if I'm right? Wow, Tall Mike got it right. I got 500 ounces. I'm going to go get a house. And that's really cool. Now, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong? Okay, you got 500 ounces of silver at $30. What is that? $15,000. $15,000. Now, how low do I think that's going to go? Could it get chopped in half? Could it go down to $15 an ounce? Absolutely, it could. Absolutely. But what if I'm right? You see, the risk reward right now is favoring 500 ounces of silver. This is just my take. This is just what I'm doing. You got to do you. I got to do me. A lot of you want to be in the stock market, and maybe that's the thing. A lot of you want to be in the Bitcoin, and maybe that's your thing. My thing happens to be 500 ounces of silver because I think I can trade that for the average price home. That's just my take. Maybe it happens. Maybe it doesn't happen. You got to look at every investment you look at. What if I'm right? What if I'm wrong? If I'm right, that's a big win. If I'm wrong, I can live with the loss. I can live with that. If I lose the whole thing, if I lose the whole thing, the whole $15,000, I'm going to be okay. Maybe you wouldn't be okay. Maybe you need to start with just one coin, $30. Would you be okay if you lost that whole $30? I bet you would. I bet you would. So you start stacking them, right? And we still have some time. This hasn't exploded yet. How much time do we have? Nobody knows. I think it's less than 3 years. Some people think it's between 5 and 10 years. We'll see. But if you start stacking now, you're going to be ready when it happens. That's just my take. I'm Tall Mike. You like this stuff? Give me the thumbs up. Why not? Get out there, everybody. Punch that subscribe button. Got to get my subscribers up. We're almost at 4,000. Recommend the video to someone. Why not? Bye-bye.